Okay, so today we're jumping into a really heavy but incredibly powerful book, the Book of Lamentations. Now, I know the name alone sounds pretty bleak, right? It was written out of total, absolute devastation. But here's the amazing thing. It's also where you'll find one of the most profound statements of hope in the entire Bible. So let's get into it. I mean, that's really the question at the heart of it all, isn't it? How can you possibly find hope when you're surrounded by utter devastation, when literally everything you've ever known is gone? Your home, your safety, your whole way of life. Where does that strength even come from? We're going to walk through how this ancient book tackles that exact problem, and honestly, its answer is pretty surprising. All right, to really get this, you've got to picture the scene. We're talking 586 BC, Jerusalem, which was the absolute heart of the nation of Israel, has just been completely sacked by the Babylonian army. And I mean leveled. The city is on fire, their sacred temples, a pile of rubble, and the people, well, they're either dead or being marched off into exile. This wasn't just a lost war. It was the end of their world, a total collapse of everything they knew. So let's start there, with this nation in ruins. We really need to understand just how catastrophic this moment was, to hear the heartbreak behind the words. So what is this book exactly? Well, at its core, it's a collection of 5 poems. Think of them as 5 songs of sorrow, written right after Jerusalem was destroyed. But it's not just a sad book. There's this incredible tension running through it. It's about letting out this raw, unfiltered grief, but at the same time, you can feel the writer just desperately clinging to faith. And get this, it was written by someone who was there. Traditionally, it's attributed to the prophet Jeremiah, the weeping prophet. But the most important part is that this is an eyewitness account. This isn't some historian writing about it years later. No, this is the raw personal testimony of someone who walked through those smoking ruins and saw it all firsthand. Okay, so now let's talk about that voice of grief. This is really the emotional heart of the book. It doesn't sugarcoat anything or offer up easy answers. It just gives a voice to the pain. Right from the first chapter, the book hits you with this gut punch of an image. It describes Jerusalem as a widow. Now, in that time and place, being a widow meant you were completely vulnerable. You had no protection, no status, no one to provide for you. You were alone. So calling the city a widow? Wow, that's a powerful way to describe total loss and isolation. And the writer keeps doing this throughout the first part of the book, this brutal before and after comparison. He talks about how Jerusalem used to be vibrant, powerful, a city everyone admired. And then he slams that right up against what it is now, alone, abandoned, humiliated. That contrast, that whiplash between memory and reality is what makes the grief feel so real, And then, in chapter 2, things get really tough. The writer does something pretty shocking. He doesn't just blame the Babylonians. In his grief, he points the finger at God. He actually describes God as an enemy, like an adversary who is personally tearing down his own city and his own people. It's this brutally honest confession that he believes their own unfaithfulness to God is the root cause of all this. So, after all this darkness, all this pain, something shifts. Right in the middle of the book, when things seem like they couldn't possibly get any worse, there's this incredible turn toward hope. Chapter 3 gets super personal. The writer starts talking about his own experience of this suffering. He says he feels trapped in darkness, completely alone in total isolation, just worn down to the bone with absolutely nothing left. He's at the end of his rope. And right there, at the absolute bottom, he stops. He forces himself to remember something. And this one memory, it changes everything. This right here, this is the pivot point of the whole book. He says, "Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his mercies never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness." It's like this light bulb moment. He realizes we're still here. We haven't been completely wiped out. And the only possible reason for that is God's mercy and faithfulness. And this is such a key idea. Hope, in this book, isn't some fuzzy feeling you get when things start looking up. No, it's a choice. It's a defiant decision you make right in the middle of the pain. It's choosing to believe in God's character even when all the evidence around you seems to point the other way. And this newfound hope isn't just for him. It sparks something bigger. It turns into a prayer from the ashes, a plea for the whole community. So in the final chapter, the perspective totally shifts. It's not I anymore, it's we. The whole community comes together in this prayer, and they aren't demanding anything. They're just humbly asking God to see them, to remember them, and to restore them. It's a prayer that admits they're completely dependent on Him. So, what does this all mean for us today? Let's talk about the message of Lamentations, this idea of finding hope within the sorrow. So, if we boil it all down, what are the big takeaways? First, the book is really honest. Our choices have consequences. Second, it tells us that grief is not the opposite of faith, it's actually a necessary part of it. Third, and this is huge, God's mercy is always, always deeper than His judgment. It teaches that hope isn't something you wait for, it's something you find in the middle of the mess. And finally, that the way back always starts with humility. You know, if there's one single thing to remember from all this, it's this. This book gives us permission to be completely honest with God. Real faith isn't about slapping on a happy face and pretending you're okay. It's about taking all your hurt, all your anger, all your confusion, and just dumping it out in front of the only one who can actually handle it. And that's where the book leaves us, with a question. It doesn't wrap everything up in a neat little bow. There's no, and they all lived happily ever after. And maybe that's the point. Maybe real faith isn't about having all the answers. Maybe it's about learning to live in that tension, to keep hoping, keep praying, even when you're still sitting in the ruins. And that kind of honest faith, well, that's a faith that's strong enough to survive anything.